formally open the meeting.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to have you all back on here again for our weekly chamber chat. Great to see some new faces and regular faces. You're all very welcome. Thanks to our speakers for taking time out to be here with us today, and I'll let John introduce those formally as they're coming on to do their contributions. I want to thank two of our directors, Deirdre Shine, Bank of Ireland, Jason Dempsey, AIB, who actually structured today's chamber chat for us, and we do appreciate the work that went into today. In terms of what Kilkenny Chamber have been doing for business of late, you've probably seen some of our media coverage, and we hope you're following our social media pages to keep up to date. We continue to lobby central government, and John meets via Chambers Ireland several times a week and discusses what's pertinent and what's ongoing from a business perspective. An ongoing series of surveys have fed the lobby of Chambers Ireland, and I know tomorrow Chambers Ireland is meeting directly with Minister Paschal O'Donoghue, and Kilkenny has had the opportunity to put forward lobby items for the Minister as well. So Kilkenny Chamber very much has its finger on the pulse due to the work that's ongoing on your behalf, and we do want to hear from you if there's items that you want raised at national government level as well. In terms of our own local supports, then we continue to facilitate our weekly chamber chat around topics that are pertinent to your businesses. Again, suggestions for chamber chats are welcome, and if anyone wants to come on and give a presentation on something that's pertinent for business, we would love to hear from you as well. So that's kind of what we've been up to. We're working strongly in the region as well. Our main focus is the reopening of Kilkenny and our local business, and we've been working with the City Centre Task Force, and it's good to see the chair of that task force, Pat Crotty, is on with us today. We will continue to monitor what's happening around the city as businesses reopen, and work locally with local authority as well, just so that they know exactly what's happening from the businesses on the streets as they get the chance to open their doors and hopefully make a lot of money in the weeks and months ahead. We're also working regionally with the Southeast Development Office and bodies like that, working on projects that will strengthen the Southeast region, and that's very important to us all. And John is the chair of the Southeast Chambers Group as well. Also, just to mention, there is a new tourism task force being set up in the city, and we will be represented on that task force by our incoming president, Colin Ahern. So that's a new and positive development for retailers, hospitality, and all of the businesses that benefit from tourism into the city. So without further ado, I will hand back to John Hurley, who will introduce our speakers for today.
Thank you, Marion. Yeah, today now our title, as you know, is Agency Supports for Business, and businesses needs lots of support in this very strange time, and they need to know what those supports are. So that's what we're focusing on today. The format will be, we have 3 speakers. I'm going to call on each speaker in succession, invite them to speak and tell us about the supports available from their organisation, and each speaker will have roughly about 10 minutes. Then we'll have questions and comments, which I'll be watching out for. You send them in to us via the online chat function, and I'll raise those as appropriate as the meeting goes on. And at the very end then, we'll also run a poll. We'll be just putting a question to you all, ask you to answer on the spot, yes or no, and we'll share the results of that poll with you as well. So to just say a few words about, by way of introduction of each of our speakers, starting first with Owen Clifford. Owen is head of the retail sector within Bank of Ireland since 2015. He's responsible for the continuing development of the bank's growth strategy in this key area, and has actively supported leading retailers and stakeholders in the sector to grow and develop their business in a sustainable manner. Owen holds a first-class honours degree in law and accounting from the University of Limerick, and is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants Ireland, and an associate of the Irish Taxation Institute. He previously held roles with PricewaterhouseCoopers and Deloitte. And then we'll move on to Deirdre Parkinson. You're very welcome, Deirdre. Deirdre is head of marketing and channels in Microfinance Ireland, with responsibility for the development and promotion of loan finance for small businesses. So Microfinance Ireland is a not-for-profit and government-funded lending organisation. Deirdre has over 30 years experience in the financial services industry and a wealth of knowledge in strategy, proposition development, and marketing for SMEs. And our third speaker then will be John Madigan, who is Head of Marketing and Research in the Strategic Banking Corporation of Ireland. John joined the SBCI in February 2015 from KBC Bank. And at KBC Bank Ireland, he had been Senior Manager, Strategy and Planning as part of the Retail Distribution Leadership Team. Prior to joining KBC, John spent 34 years with Bank of Ireland, where his roles included Head of Branches, Head of Marketing and Communications for Retail in Ireland, and various roles in planning, marketing, training, and branch and business banking. So it's a very strong lineup of speakers we have. Really looking forward to hear what they have to say. And I'm going to start with asking Owen Clifford to give us his presentation. So over to you, Owen.
Thank you, John, and good afternoon, everybody. As John outlined, I head up the retail sector in Bank of Ireland, and today I'm just going to give an overview of what we're seeing in the marketplace, both nationally and internationally, in terms of the retail sector. The philosopher Emerson said, "What lies behind you and what lies in front of you is far outweighed by what lies within you." And thankfully, retailers around the country are living and breathing this maxim on a daily basis during these challenging times. At the outset, I'd like to commend all of the retailers that are on the call for their fantastic can-do attitude and community spirit that they have shown during these difficult times. I've long been an advocate of the contribution that retail makes to the country, and I think this has now been magnified amongst the wider population. And there's a real acknowledgement of the pivotal role that our retailers play in our communities nationwide, and a palpable sense of goodwill towards Irish retailers that our retailers can actually work and grow what they're doing in the communities for the benefit of the wider communities. And with that presents a real opportunity to re-engage with the Irish consumer, to leverage this goodwill. Once the customer comes in, then make sure that they come back by delivering the core principles of retail: excellent service, accessibility, and value. And looking at trends that we're seeing around the country at the moment, especially in the grocery side, where the stores have been open, we're seeing a return of the big weekly shop. All of us are shopping less frequently. We're more considerate in our purchases. We're making a list, getting the goods, and trying to get home as quickly as possible. There's no dwell time in the store. It's real functional shopping. And understandably, that's been driven by health and safety concerns. But again, that presents a real opportunity for smaller stores. They can service the need of the Irish consumer. They're closer, they're more accessible, they can deliver a service where there's less queues, they can interact through social media, through a video call or through a normal call, and tailor the product and service for their customer in advance, get the customer to book a slot and then collect the product in their own time and in their own comfort. Upweighted, click and collect. There's a real opportunity to be innovative and, dare I say, to put the fun into functional shopping if possible and play to their strengths. In terms of the non-grocery side, what we're seeing out there, the big topic at the moment is the reopening roadmap, and when is that going to be accelerated, and what can happen around it? And we know that some of the shopping centre stores aren't due to be open until the 10th of August. What I'm saying to my customers around the country is, irrespective of what the opening dates are, whether it's accelerated or not, they need to be prepared, and they need to focus on a number of key areas. They need to engage with their staff, absolutely engage with their staff. Their staff are the greatest brand ambassador that they have. And if the staff need to be comfortable with the health and safety procedures that are required, because that will obviously feed onto the customers that come into the store. In terms of keeping engaged with their customers, be it they open or not open, they need to keep in contact with them. Use social media, text messages, pick up the phone, speak to the customers. Also, suppliers are absolutely key. And what I'm seeing, the most progressive retailers out there are collaborating with their suppliers. And when they're collaborating proactively with them, they're getting better terms, not alone in terms of the stock that they have, but in terms of future ordering into 2021. So again, communication, absolutely key. In terms of online, online is not going to, it's been a lifeline for retailers over the last number of months, but it's not going to be the panacea for retailers, because online on its own is a very expensive channel. And a number of retailers I've been speaking to the last couple of weeks have said they've been amazed at the delivery costs and that the profitability of the online channel hasn't been as much as they thought it would be. For me, the optimal is a combination of bricks and mortar and online, an omni-channel approach. And that's what retailers out there need to do. They need to focus on both the bricks and mortar and on the online and get that interaction between the two. Give it an in-store feel for the consumer. If the consumer is coming using your online channel, they need to be able to find the product easily, the most popular products. If they're wanting to purchase, they can't go the whole way through till the end of the process and try and check out and be told that the product isn't there. It needs to be user friendly. There's a real opportunity in terms of online as well, because at the moment, 70% of online sales are going overseas. So collectively, Irish retailers need to work together to onshore online sales and to demonstrate that their product and their service is as good as what's out there internationally, and to make the customer go to their site. And then if they go to their site, make sure that, as I said, the core principle of retail are absolutely maintained. Great service, accessibility, and value. Stock management is also key, especially in some areas such as fashion, where the stock can easily and very quickly go out of style and out of fashion very, very quickly. In terms of stock management, the easy option is to discount, and to discount heavily to get product out of the store. That's not the answer. Retailers need to be considered in terms of the discount policy that they employ, because they can very easily go into a discount spiral and get an expectation from the consumer that that's the base price of their product, and they can undermine the value of their product and undermine the value of the service that they're providing. Discounting will be required, but it needs to be considered. Personnel are also key as we move, and in terms of retail, we're seeing a huge change in terms of the type of personnel that retailers need. They need to have personnel that are good with e-commerce, logistics, social media, fulfillment, finance, all of these areas. And a lot of the retailers that I know are trying to do this all on their own themselves, and it's very easy to get burnt out. They need to look for support, expand the definition of the team. It's not just the people that work for them. Speak to mentors. There's numerous agencies and supports out there where they can tap into that, engage with them and see what's best. And as retailers, focus on what they're good at, which is buying, selling and engaging with the customer. In my role in Bank of Ireland, as I said, I head up the retail sector. I'm more than happy to speak to any retailer around the 26 counties in terms of their strategy and have a one-to-one with them to see what's the most appropriate strategy for them. What are we seeing in terms of the European experience out there as the stores have reopened is that there has been some pent-up demand in some areas such as DIY, hardware, mobile phone stores, no different than what we've seen under the first reopening phase in Ireland. But what we're seeing post that pent-up demand is that retailers are coming back to sales of somewhere like 50 and 60% of where they were this time last year. So with that, a real strong, live, agile, flexible business plan is required by the business. They need to focus on their customers, on their employees, on their suppliers. They need to look at the sales channels, whether it be bricks and mortar, online or a combination. They need to look at margin, better buying. Brexit, thankfully, and I never thought I'd say this, has put contingency plans in place for people where they were able to actually look at alternative suppliers. And they are tapping into those contingency plans now to see can they purchase smarter and better. In terms of wastage, make sure that there's as little wastage as possible there to try to keep the margin and sustain the margin. In terms of their costs, the cost area is no different than any other time. They need to be looking at their property costs, rent rates. They need to be looking at insurance, looking at is there any way they can drive energy efficiency in their business. And another key area as part of the business plan is cybersecurity. As more and more of us move into using an online channel, the retailers need to make sure that we're comfortable and that the integrity of their online platform is secure, so that all it would take is one blip in that respect and people won't come back. So that needs to be absolutely assured. Overall, and looking at the next 12 to 24 months, if COVID has taught us anything, it's taught us that health and wellness and community are really, really important for all of us. It's unfortunately, many people will also be under financial pressure. So value and values will be absolutely key for the Irish consumer in their shopping preferences. In looking at value, price will be important, but price isn't everything. We need retailers to focus on their credentials in terms of Irishness, supporting local communities in terms of their provenance and traceability of their product, environmental friendliness of the product, sustainability of the product. And to bring all of those together is absolutely key to make sure that they meet the expectations of the Irish consumer. With the right support, and that's key, the right support, I fully believe that the majority of our retailers will emerge stronger and more viable businesses. Mary Portas recently said that we have to, as consumers, we all have to think of every euro spent as a vote for the type of community that we want for the future. I would fully concur with that assessment. We should all try and support our local retailers as best we can in the coming months. And hopefully we will see them thrive into 2021 and into the future. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Owen. Fantastic. Very interesting couple of points. I've been taking notes furiously as you spoke there. And one thing that struck me was your reference to the omni-channel approach. Even before COVID hit, the whole retail sector had been, facing the online challenge and indeed the challenges of consumer behavior changing. Your suggestion there that it's bricks and mortar plus the online or clicks, using both. And in that kind of space, actually, the Chamber of Commerce is proactively working on getting a number of the retailers here in Kilkenny together to see if we can get enough interested that we'll be able to develop a Kilkenny retail shopping app, which again is part of what you were talking about there in terms of working together and supporting each other. And, I suppose highlighting the Irishness piece of it. I know just going around town, you'd see a few shops have the bezoo.com on their windows while they're closed and so on. So what we're talking about here is an app that does all of that, but it's doing it for the Kilkenny shops in particular.
Fantastic initiative. Yeah, and there's a real appetite for that. I think as you outlined, it's the whole piece around accessibility and deliverability is going to be key. We can see that as consumers, we're all less patient now, even in terms of if someone says they're going to deliver within 48 hours, it isn't quick enough. We're having the option to go into the store and to pick it up in the store at our own time. That suits a lot better. And we also know from statistics that when people go into a store, that they're twice as likely to spend as opposed to just when they visit the website. So there's opportunities for upselling as well in turn. But it all has to be done through the lens of health and safety. And that's absolutely key over the next few months, that people are comfortable visiting the store. So engagement with staff is going to be key in making sure that health and safety agenda is front and foremost for the next few months.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks very much, Owen. And thanks also for your offer, which we'll offer to channel to anybody. Your offer of doing a one-to-one with anybody who wants to, kind of pick your brain and stuff. That's really good of you, Owen. Much appreciated. So if there is anybody listening and they'd like to take up that offer, they can contact us in the chamber and we'll make the connection there. So thanks very much indeed, Owen. Really fantastic presentation. And moving on then to our next speaker, Deirdre Parkinson. Deirdre, I'll hand over to you, and you have some slides, so I'll share those now, and away you go, Deirdre.
Great, thanks, John, and good afternoon, everybody. It's great to participate in this. It's more difficult to get our message out there around the country, so it's great to talk to businesses like this. So look, I'm just going to give you a brief overview. I have 3 or 4 slides here, so nothing too onerous, but it will give you a sense of the new COVID-19 loan package. That's the one I'm going to focus on from Microfinance Ireland, or MFI for short. And just to give you, as I say, a brief summary, and again, my contact details are at the end, so feel free to reach out and email me if you have any specific questions that you don't want to talk about here. So in terms of the loan package, this is a government initiative that was launched back in March. It seems so long ago now, nearly a lifetime ago at this stage. But MFI, as a not-for-profit lender, has always been, our mission has been around the creation and retention of jobs. And we do that by providing loan finance to small businesses who are having difficulty in getting that finance from elsewhere. So now more than ever, I suppose, that finance piece, that financial support is hugely important, I suppose, for small businesses. And what we've seen since March is, at the beginning, people were closing their doors. We didn't know how long it was going to go on for. We were kind of going from a fortnight to a fortnight, which has turned out to be much longer than any of us expected. And John, the next slide is fine. But things are moving now, and people seem to be getting into that much more restart, reboot mode. And that's where we can help as well in terms of working capital and support for you to reopen and restart your business. So the COVID-19 is a specific loan finance package up to 50,000. So I'll go through the features of it now. As I say, up to March, our loan threshold was 25,000, and we still have those standard loan packages available. But this is for specifically aimed at businesses who have been impacted by COVID-19, and basically it's a working capital product over a 3-year loan term typically. We can do a little bit longer terms depending on the purpose of the loan. So, but primarily it's working capital over 3 years. The beauty of this really is, though, that we're giving you, I suppose, the first 6 months interest-free and repayment-free. And that means that it gives you that breathing space that, and if you're now looking at, making changes in your business, or restarting, that it gives you that breathing space until repayments kick in. So that interest-free period and repayment-free period is a huge benefit to small businesses. And the loan then is repayable over the remaining 30 months of the loan term. The interest rate, and the Minister Humphreys, announced a change in the rate in early April. We launched, as I say, mid-March, and the rates were brought down to 4.5% if you're referred by your bank, and I'll talk about that in a second, or you apply through the local enterprise office there in Kilkenny, or if you apply to us directly, it's 5.5%. So we have an arrangement with all of the banks, AIB, Bank of Ireland, Permanent TSB, and Ulster Bank, that, if they're not in a position to help you in terms of funding, then they can refer you directly to us. And what that means is that they send on your contact details, and we get in touch with you then and see, are we in a position to help. But those rates are very favourable, and again, it's to try and give as much support as we can to small businesses who are clearly struggling through the current period, but that were viable before this happened, and hopefully will be viable again. And again, there's no fees, charges, or indeed penalties for early repayment. I've had a lot of inquiries, well, can I pay it off before the 3-year term? Of course you can, and the rate is all you pay. So we try to make it as beneficial for the business as possible. In terms of eligibility, our mandate has always been aimed at micro enterprises. So that is any business, sole trader, partnership, limited company, it doesn't matter, with up to 10 employees and annual turnover of up to 2 million. Now that accounts for, the major bulk of businesses in this country. So, and at the time that we launched it, back in, as I say, mid-March, the schools were closing for 2 weeks at that point in time. The businesses were still open. And so now the eligibility criteria is that your business has to be negatively impacted by 15% or more in either turnover or profit. I don't think there's many businesses out there that haven't been impacted in that way. But the key, I suppose, piece for us is that we're there to help people who can't avail of bank finance. And that's a really important point, that this fund is to try and help those businesses to survive that can't get finance from elsewhere. So, you know, it's not, we don't compete with the banks, and we don't want to compete with the banks. So if you can get bank finance, that should be the route. And I know John Madigan's going to talk about their scheme delivered through the main bank. So just to bear that in mind, that it's for those that can't get access to bank finance. In terms of how to apply, there's some standard information, you know, that a business has or should have, you know, in terms of a business plan. And again, I think Owen mentioned it, it's really important to have an up-to-date business plan for your business. So we want to know, and we have a simple template, and all these templates are on our website, so you can check them out. But there's 5 or 6 key questions in terms of who you are, what you do, how have you been impacted by COVID, and what do you need to do now, you know, to help you recover and restart. Cash flow forecast, really important for the next 12 months. And again, people are struggling, you know, as they're applying, they're on to me. Oh, I don't know when I'm going to reopen, how I'm going to reopen, what kind of turnover. It's your best guesstimate. I would say take a cautious approach to it. And as Owen mentioned there, I think that 50% drop in turnover and then some probably, you know, so be cautious, I suppose, in your estimates of your turnover over the next number of months. We also look for bank statements, both business and personal. We do a credit check for sole traders and partnerships, but for companies, we look for personal credit reports from company directors and shareholders. And again, this is all with a view to try and assess that the business was viable before this happened, and you know, we're supporting you through the current crisis, and that you will be viable again. Management accounts, if you have them, you know, however you can demonstrate to us how your business is doing. And for loans over 25k, we look for debtors and creditors listings as well. So, but a lot of this information is probably there and available within your business. In terms of what the local enterprise office can do for you, they can help, and sometimes businesses, you know, can and want to apply directly, and that's fine. But just to tell you that there is support and advice and mentors available through your local enterprise office, and they can help prepare your application and submit it on your behalf. So in terms of if you're having difficulty with, say, the financials, they can have a financial planning mentor that can help you pull together your cash flow forecast. Once you submit your application to us through the LEOs or to us directly, we will assign it to one of our loan assessors. So we've a team of about 40 assessors. They've been working around the clock the last few weeks and months. But we are, and they assess your application and work through it just to get a full understanding of your business and, you know, where you are at the moment. And we come back then with a credit decision, essentially a credit decision. We say within 10 days, but we're actually, our turnarounds are quite good at the moment. We're turning around in about 5 to 6 working days. And then in terms of approval, it's more or less over to you in terms of we will issue a loan offer letter, and the funds can be drawn down in a few days, which is happening a lot at the minute. And that gives you that breathing space and that support in terms of whether you're covering, you know, rent or wages or whatever it may be. So as I say, the banks, if you're talking to the banks in terms of finance and they're not in a position to help, ask them, you know, to refer you if that's what you want to do, or you can register your details directly on our website, and we will get an application pack out to you by email. So then just to move on, John, maybe the next slide, I just wanted to mention briefly the, if you're not eligible for the COVID-19 package up to 50,000, you know, in terms of the eligibility criteria, and the only one would be your business, that 15% negative impact in terms of turnover or profit. But we've had a number of requests lately where people are looking to diversify their business or go start something completely new or something different. If you don't meet the eligibility criteria for COVID, we still have up to 25,000 on our standard loan packages. The rates are slightly higher. They're 6.8% if you're referred by your bank or the local enterprise office, and 7.8% if you come to us directly. But that is to cover, you know, setup costs, working capital, again, business expansion, but that isn't impacted by COVID. So I just said I'd mention that. And just lastly then, in terms of contact details, again, my email address, it's queries@microfinanceIreland.ie, and one of the team will get back to you, or my email address, dparkinson@microfinanceIreland.ie. I'd be happy to help anyone in terms of answering specific queries in how we can help you. Okay.
Thank you very much, Deirdre. Fantastic presentation. I wonder, I've got one question coming through. Given that other government funds are being exhausted, and we're seeing some of that feeding back to us these days, how robust is the Microfinance Ireland capacity?
Yeah, well, the Minister Humphreys announced at the weekend additional funding up to an additional 75 million to bring us up to 95 million. Now, she has published the legislation. It does require the passing of the legislation, which I understand needs the government to be formed. But like, we've had unprecedented demand, but we're hoping that will be sorted out in the next couple of weeks. So the government have committed, but it just needs to be rubber stamped in terms of legislation. No different to some of the other schemes. John will probably mention the credit guarantee scheme as part of his presentation now, so it's no different to that.
Super. Okay, well, Deirdre, thanks very much indeed for that. And conscious that we're working to a tight timeline, I won't delay any further, but on to you, John Madigan, Head of Marketing and Research at the SBC of I.
Great, thanks, John.
You have slides now, and I'll bring those up to you.
There's quite a few slides there. There's 10 or 12, so maybe we'll just flick through them pretty quickly. So if we go on to slide 2 straight away, just to give you a sense, the SBCI is an agency of the Department of Finance. And one of the things that we've been tasked with is to try and bring risk-sharing schemes into the Irish market, which lowers the risk for both a bank and an SME in lending money. And I suppose today's presentation will focus to a large extent on the COVID-19 working capital loan scheme, which is one of those risk-sharing supports that's available to SMEs in Ireland. So if we just quickly flick on there, that's just a view of our new website, and that's actually the products page. So you can see the COVID-19 scheme is there, Future Growth Loan Scheme, which I'll mention, Brexit Loan Scheme still exists, and on the bottom right, the SME Credit Guarantee Scheme, all of which I'll mention today. So if we pop on to the COVID-19 Working Capital Scheme, the idea behind this is that, you know, we heard from Owen and from Dee that a lot of people are actually now working and thinking about how they're going to have to change their businesses, and that will require investment. It will definitely require, in a lot of cases, loans to support that spend and to change the business model. You know, if social distancing continues to apply, particularly in indoor spaces, how do you actually spend money to make sure that that actually becomes a safe environment for your customers? So basically, this scheme is designed, we give the 3 banks that are participating in the scheme, AIB, Bank of Ireland and Ulster, an 80% guarantee. So they are actually on the hook then for the remaining 20%. So it covers loan amounts of between 25 and 1.5 million. Maximum interest rate is 4%. It's for loans up to 3 years. But the big thing in this is that loans up to €500,000 are unsecured. So there are no personal guarantees involved. There's no additional security. So the time frame involved in actually getting the decision from the bank should be much quicker. you do need to bring a business plan with you, and there is an eligibility piece which I'll talk about in a second as well. And there are built into the schemes now 90 days interest only repayments may be available at the start of the loans. That's a new feature that has come in from the European Investment Fund as well. And obviously the loan and term is dependent on the loan purpose. So the loans can be used for, now they can be used for future working capital requirements. So if you're looking to buy stock in advance of opening, if you're looking to actually put up dividers in your shop, if you're looking to do something in a retail environment that makes it safer and there's a cost there, it's covered by this particular scheme. And then it's to fund innovation, change or adaptation of your business to mitigate the impact of COVID-19. This is an important point because a lot of customers have come back to us and said, I'm not really an innovative company. I don't spend a lot of money on research and development. I'm a retailer, I'm a shop, I'm a pub, and I'm trying to see where I fit within the innovation criteria. It's really important to understand that this scheme, the definition of innovation is very broad. It's as broad as if you are putting up perspex screens to actually allow your customers come into your shop. That is innovation as regards this scheme. So do not be put off by the idea that you have to be innovative. It doesn't actually need to be anything other than you're changing your business in some format to make you viable or continue to be viable as you exit from the corona pandemic. Loans cannot be used for refinancing, except in the situation where you have had to spend money during a COVID closure. That can be refinanced using the COVID-19 working capital loan scheme. But it does not cover refinancing of existing debt, term loans, leases, hire purchases, etc. So who can apply for it? Viable small and medium enterprises. So the definition of an SME is employees up to 249, turnover of 50 million and a balance sheet size of 34 million, covers most SMEs in Ireland. And the small cap criteria is that you have less than 500 employees. So effectively it covers, I think it excludes about 400 companies in Ireland that are bigger than that in terms of scale. It doesn't apply to primary ag or to the aquaculture sector. And then, as I said before, it doesn't apply to businesses in financial difficulty, excepting those that have cash flow pressures due to the COVID-19 pandemic. All right. So if we can move on. There's a two-part process with the COVID-19 scheme. One is just have a quick look at the SBCI website to assess if your business is likely to meet the eligibility criteria. If you are 15%, if turnover is impacted negatively by 15% or profit is negatively impacted by 15%, then effectively you will be eligible, all right? The eligibility form is available on the website. You have to tick effectively two boxes on that. One which says I am 15% impacted by COVID. And the second piece is you must meet one of the innovation criteria. We are going to simplify the form in the next couple of months. But what I would say to most SMEs is to look at eligibility, innovation eligibility criteria number one. And number one says I'm going to spend 80% or more of the loan on innovating, research and development, or changing my business to react to the COVID-19 pandemic. So don't be worrying about items 2 to 11. Look at item number one. More than 85% of applicants to date on the for the scheme have actually gone through using eligibility box number one. Okay, so what happens is you send the eligibility form to us, and we will determine whether you're eligible or not for the scheme. This is not a credit decision. All right, this is actually just the eligibility piece. We will give you an eligibility reference number, and you take that along with your updated business plan. Again, there's a template on our website. It's very simple for this particular scheme, and you bring that to your preferred finance provider, AIB, Bank of Ireland, or Ulster in this case for this particular scheme. We will also be updating the terms of the COVID-19 scheme when the next tranche of money becomes available, and it's likely that we will have a much simpler form, and we will also have we will be dropping the requirement for a business plan. So all of those things will change over the next month, but at the moment they still hold. You can check out the website for the FAQs But also, just to bring your attention, we'll share this presentation afterwards, but the link at the bottom is a YouTube explainer video as to how you actually apply for your COVID-19 scheme. Goes through the form. It's a very simple thing. It takes about 2.5 minutes. Well worth a look. All right. So moving on, John. So just to give you a sense, there's been a lot of noise around, obviously, around the low uptake of government schemes and, you know, the low uptake on support and what's going on. Just to let you know that as of, this was actually last Friday's figures, we've received nearly 3,000 applications for eligibility. We've issued 2,615 codes to individual SMEs. Currently in process, we're dealing with about 316. There have been 328 loans sanctioned, and that's 40 million in value of the initial scheme. So it is beginning to move, and we're seeing that tick up every single day. As of this morning, that figure has reached nearly 43 million, and that's just happened over the last 2 or 3 days. So to go back to what both Owen and Deirdre was saying, people are now beginning to understand what the impact on their business is and what they will need to do to make sure that they can actually be prepared and ready to go. 2 quick things I want to say. The credit guarantee scheme is already there. It's for loans of up to 7 years. It covers loans from 10 grand up to 1 million. And it's really useful if you don't have adequate security with your bank. All right, it is again a scheme that will be revised, hopefully updated within the next month or 2, but the revision will require a new government formation. So, but the existing scheme still holds and is currently being used by AIB, Bank of Ireland and Ulster. The Brexit loan scheme continues to be there. It's very similar to the COVID-19 scheme. So Brexit is going to come back. I even heard it being spoken about last night on the news and kind of thought, God, we haven't heard that word in a little while. It's back. So just to be aware, it's there as well. And then just finally, what is coming soon is obviously the top up to 2 existing schemes. There's about up to 250 million that will be provided through the COVID working capital loan scheme. So that's additional funding that's going to go onto the scheme in the next month, we hope. But also the future growth loan scheme, which was a huge success for us last year. We put out a 300 million long-term scheme, 8 to 10 years, of rates of between 3.5% and 4%. And that was actually fully utilised, with the exception of KBC, who have a little bit of capacity left on the scheme. But that was actually utilised within 6 months, fully taken up. So it shows that there is an appetite to invest with SMEs, but in the immediate, the 3-year COVID working capital loan scheme is probably the one that most people should be looking at. So that's it. They're my contact details. Best to get me on email. Unfortunately, phone signal is somewhat erratic, to put it mildly, but I will answer and happy to engage on a one-to-one with anybody as well. That's it, John. Thank you very much for that. Thanks for the time.
John, thank you very much indeed. Very detailed. And we have a few questions. We won't have time for them all, but I will put one in to you, if I may. If a person gets SBCI approval, can they then be refused by the banks?
Yes, and we have seen some of that happen already. But we really want people to engage with the bank positively, because in a lot of cases, you know, we've seen applications go in that are probably, if they were reworded or done with a bit of help from an accountant, would probably pass. All right. But if you do get a decline from a bank, I would really encourage people to go through the internal appeals process with each bank immediately. It looks like, there's about a 1 in 4 chance that actually you will get the decision re-looked at by a different credit underwriter. So you have 1 chance there. And then obviously failing that, if you believe that your proposal is still worthy, then you go to the credit review office. And the credit review office have about a 1 in 2 record of overturning decisions. So do not give up at the first refusal, is what I'm saying. It may need a bit of reworking. It may need a newer business plan. It may need a revision of figures. But the appeals process is there. It's there deliberately to allow you actually go through that appeals process. You have a much better chance if you do that.
Super. Thanks very much indeed, John, for that fully comprehensive outline of what's involved there. Conscious of the time is moving along, on us. What I'm going to do now is, before I hand back to our president to close the meeting, I'm launching a poll. There should be a question up on your screens now. And would ask you, are you ready and happy to return to work either as an employee or an employer on the date allotted to your sector by the government return to work roadmap? And so yes or no, you've just got a couple of seconds, and if you could tick one or out of the boxes there, and I'll let it run for maybe 20 seconds, and we'll see what the general feel is out there amongst us all. We've had a healthy 34 participants here today, which was a good number. Great to see you all. And it'll be interesting to see how most of you are feeling on that particular question, because this is what's happening. Next week, we are beginning to return to work, and over the coming weeks. So it'll be interesting to see how people are feeling in terms of their readiness. Okay, so I'm ending the poll now and sharing the results. So you can see there, yeah, the majority of us are looking forward to going back to work and ready for it, 92%. So that's great to see. So that's our session for today. I will hand over now to our President, Marion, to just close off the meeting.
Thanks, John. Just want to say thank you to our speakers, to Owen, to Deirdre, and to John today. Really great to have you here. And I think the whole challenge of financing for business is deeply personal and private at the moment. And it's great that you've reached out and said that you can speak to our members and the attendees here on a one-to-one basis. And I know that's very much the case in our local banking institutions as well. There's a very hands-on approach. So that's great to hear. And an awful lot of detail went in there. I like the way, Owen, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said we need the right supports, and we need to not be afraid to look for those and to broaden our net, I suppose, in terms of the team that we have around us. That's something that we find here in terms of networking and support and mutual support amongst business. So that was very relevant, I thought. And the other two presentations were just great, very factual. I learned a lot from them now, I must say, and it makes everything very accessible and very clear. So thanks for that. In terms of a couple of things that are coming up for Kilkenny Chamber, our next Chamber Chat, we've actually made a decision that we're going to do our Chamber Chats now on a fortnightly basis. We're kind of conscious that a lot of people are back to work and maybe everyone doesn't have the time to dial in every week. So just to be aware, the next Chamber Chat will be the 18th of June. We're going to stick with Thursdays at lunchtime, and we hope to see you there, and we'll announce the content of that chat in the coming days. Our AGM then is a very important meeting for members, and our AGM will be held on the 25th of June at lunchtime. We've sent out a lot of notifications to the members, and we'll continue to do that. But just mark it in your diaries, because you'll need to register for the AGM in advance, because we're going to deliver via Zoom. So a new challenge for us this year. I'm sure we'll be fine. There won't be any technical problems. There's a good backup team here in John and Roisin as well. So we're looking forward to seeing you all at the AGM. And that's a members only event. Now, in terms of members, I am going to ask you all, if you're not members of Kilkenny Chamber, that you will consider joining Kilkenny Chamber, because the Chamber is funded by our members. And we have a membership of over 250 businesses in Kilkenny, but every single business in Kilkenny should want to support Kilkenny Chamber. And I would urge you to consider that immediately, if you can at all. And the guys in the office are always on hand to discuss membership and ways to make it work for you, and ways to make it work for us as well. So that's my ask as well. So I think that's our lot for today. Again, thanks to everyone for your time and for coming to see us, and keep in touch with us on social media and that, and we will be announcing our next Chamber Chat in the coming days, to take place in 2 weeks' time. Thank you all. Have a lovely weekend when it comes, and I hope it gets a bit warmer for us again.
Thanks, Marion.